Good evening. Here is the world news from BGI TV, Baba Bagede Imo TV. I am Morire Rabila Lawal. First are the major headlines. President Buhari signs the Auto Establishment Bill into law. I have appointment with Buhari on Kanu's release. Saludo. Repatriation of Benin artifact, my biggest achievements. Matawali caution banks against hoarding new Naira note. Protesters stormed CBN in Ondo to change old note. Suspected ritualists dismembered school board in Adabara removed body part. 20-year-old man sentenced to death by hanging in Lagos. Oldest man in Oyo Palace dies at 120. On foreign, pandemic pushed 55 million more Africans into poverty. And lastly, Nacho again named in Team of the Week. Now the news in detail. President Muhammad Buhari has signed the establishment bill of the National Institute of Hospitality and Tourism, NIHOTO, into law. This is contained in a statement signed by Mr. Joseph Karim, Special Assistant Technical to the Director General of NIHOTO, Alhaji Sani Kanyiwa, and issued to the News Agency of Nigeria on Monday in Abuja. The Act established the Institute for Training, Certification, and Registration of Hospitality, Travel, and Tourism Personnel in Nigeria. NAN report that NIHOTO is a parastatal agency under the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, engaged in training, consultancy, research, publications towards promoting skills and entrepreneurship. The Institute has played a pivotal role in building an entrepreneurial ecosystem, not only in Nigeria, but in other countries through international training and developmental programs. Moving on to Southeast. Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State said he has booked an appointment with President Muhammadu Buhari and waiting for an appointment to facilitate the immediate release of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Soludo, who disclosed these on Monday in a quarterly statewide briefing on the activities of his government, reiterated his commitment to ensuring the release of Kanu. He said his appointment with Buhari hoped to discuss issues of security in the southeast, particularly Kanu's release. Recall that Governor, during the flag off of his party's All Progressive Grand Alliance AGO campaigns in Oka, called for Kanu's release, pledging to stand as surety for Kanu if federal government found it hard to release him unconditionally. Soludo said he hoped to meet Buhari and also speak with him on the imperative of releasing Kanu. According to Soludo, Kanu's release would assist him, Kanu, to intervene in areas where some groups use secessionist agitation as a means to perpetuate criminality. Kanu was saddened by the level of the crime associated with the agitation when I visited him in prison. He called on, and he said it's an abomination. Moving on to the next story. Alhaji Lai Mohammed says the biggest achievement of his ministry in the area of culture and tourism is the repatriation of hundreds of looted artifacts. Mohammed, Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture, disclosed these on Tuesday in Abuja at the 26th edition of the President Muhammadu Buhari PMB Administration's Core Board Series 2015-2023. During the period under review, efforts to repatriate artifacts looted from Nigeria, which we launched November 28, 2019, paid off handsomely with a total of 1,130 Benin bronzes ending home from Germany alone. The physical return has since commenced with the first batch accompanied to Nigeria in December 2022 by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Culture of Germany and an entourage of 80 top government and museums officials. Nigeria is currently at the forefront of global effort or repatriation of antiquities to their countries of origin. Mohammed said his ministry also succeeded in repatriating a 600-year-old Ife terracotta Coming from Netherlands in October 2020, he added that burning drums were also repatriated from the University of Aberdeen and Jesus College of University of Cambridge, as well as the Metropolitan Museum, New York. To the next story from Zamfara State. Governor Bello Matawalle of Zamfara has cautioned deposit money banks in the state against hoarding of New Naira North. Matawalle spoke on Monday when he paid an unscheduled visit to the Gusau branch of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and 5 other deposit money banks to assess the level of hardship being faced by citizens in assessing the New Naira North. A statement issued in Gusau on Tuesday by the press secretary to the governor, Jamilu Brendan Magaji, said the governor was agged by the long queues at ATMs amid acute scarcity and hopelessness in the state. Brendan Magaji listed the banks visited by the governor include CBN Gusau Branch Headquarters, United Bank for Africa UBA, Jais, ECHO, and First Bank.
Sees recognitions of the Old Naira note of a legal tender from February 10th. The decisions compounded the already dire situation of our state occasions by banditry and disorderly crime, which significantly disrupted economic activities in the state and the sub-region over the years. It was a consideration of the grave consequences of this disruptive policy that was not well enough or well thought. Out of that, I took the decision to team up with the sister state of Kaduna and Kogi to seek the interventions of the Supreme Court to ensure that both the new and the old note remain as legal tender.
Welcome back. Some Nigerians still in possession of the old note of 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira note on Tuesday's morning stormed the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN in Akure, the Ondo state capital, for cash swap. Many said they have so many of the old notes in their possession and find it hard for spending. Officials of the bank told the protesters to go to their respective commercial banks to swap the notes, but the protesters insisted they had been to their banks and were asked to return to the Apex Bank. One of the protesters, Francis, said they were at the CBN at Alabaka, Akure, beside, and because the commercial banks refused to collect the old note from them is the reason they come to the central bank. Francis said he could not allow his money to become useless. Policemen were drafted to the scene, and after some minutes, some CBN officials informed the protesters to commercial banks, and moved to the commercial banks have been contacted to begin the collection of the old notes. To the next story from Adamawa. Suspected ritualists have killed a boy in the Adamawa state capital, Yola, and removed some part of his body. The lifeless body of the boy was found in Rumde, a community behind Yola North Local Government Secretariat in Jimeta, with his throat sliced and his tongue and eye moved. The victim has been identified as a pupil of one of the Islamic schools in the locality. Some residents of Rumde have spoken of having heard the cry of the boy, but said they took no action because they thought it was merely molestation of a junior pupil by a senior. The state's police public relations officer, SP Yaya Unguruje, said a count of the body of the boy had been taken to hospital for autopsy and that investigation had commenced to track down the culprits. He urged parents and guardians to always take full responsibility for their child's upbringing. Daily Post report that the disease, who is of the Senga Islamia school, would most likely have been one of those brought into Yola from a distant town for Islamic and Arabic literacy. From the north to Lagos. A Lagos Special Offences Court, Ikeja, has sentenced a 20-year-old man, Najim Badmos, to death by hanging for armed robbery. Justice Olubunmi Abike Fadipe sentenced the convict after finding him guilty as charged by the prosecution. The judge held that the prosecution proved beyond reasonable doubt the ingredients of the 2-count charge of conspiracy to commit robbery and armed robbery. The state had charged him with conspiracy and armed robbery contrary to the provisions of Section 299 and Section 297 of the Criminal Laws of Lagos State 2015. The witness had told the court that the defendant, in company of 2 others still at large, did rob him of his bag and other valuables on his way to work sometime in July 2019 at the Alagbado bus stop. He said he noticed a motorcyclist carrying 2 passengers approaching him. In her judgment, Justice Abike Fadipe found the defendant guilty of the offense of conspiracy to commit robbery and sentenced him to 21 years jail term. The judge also described the defendant's testimony as inconsistent, stressing that the evidence of persecution witness Adetokunbo Solomon, victim, was cogent and thorough. In respect to armed robbery, having been found guilty, you will be charged and hung on the neck until you die, and may the Lord have mercy on you, the court held. From Lagos to Oyo State. The oldest man in the palace of Alaafin of Oyo in Oyo State reportedly died on Sunday. The news of the death of Morenikeji Lasisi, popularly known as Babakeji, who died at the age of 120 years, was announced on Monday. He had served 3 Alaafin of Oyo before his death on Sunday, 10 months after the death of the 45th Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Lamidi Adeyemi, whom he served for 51 years. He will be buried according to Islamic rites this afternoon, that is today, the Post learned. To the foreign story. Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, Acting Executive Secretary, Mr. Antonio Pedro, revealed this in a statement issued on Tuesday by ECA's communications section. Global shocks are turning millions of vulnerable people into Africa's new poor and reversing decades of progress. Pedro explained that the COVID-19 pandemic had pushed an additional 55 million Africans below the poverty line. He added that the impact of the war in Ukraine was also expected to further compound the challenge. Pedro noted that even when growth rates were high in Africa, everyone did not benefit equally. For example, in 2022, the top 10% of wage earners received about 30.69% of total income, he said. Pedro said high inequality, along with high levels of poverty, created a vicious cycle in which structural bottleneck persisted. Finally, on the world news is sports story. Kelechi Iheanacho has been named in the Premier League Team of the Week for the 2nd consecutive week. Iheanacho was on target and provided an assist in Leicester City's 4-1 win against Tottenham Hotspur last weekend. The 26-year-old was also named man of the match after the game. The Nigerian international was also included in the Team of the Week in the previous match day after scoring once and recording 2 assists in the 4-1 win against Aston Villa. Iheanacho has netted 3 times and provided 5 assists in 16 league appearances for the Foxes this season. The forward has regained his position in Leicester City's starting lineup after he previously lost his place in the side. That ends the world news this moment. Before we go, some major headlines. President Buhari signs Nahoto establishment into law. We also brought to you, I have appointment with Buhari on Kano's release, Soludo. Repatriation of Bini artifact, my biggest achievement, Lai Mohammed. We also brought to you, Matawali caution banks against hoarding new Naira North. And another sad one coming from Oyo Palace. Oldest man in Oyo dies at 120. And finally on sports. Iheanacho again named in Team of the Week for his blistering performance over last weekend. Thank you for watching. Before we go, for more updates on our YouTube, the handle is Baba Bagede Imo TV. Kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell. Select option all to access our broadcast. On Facebook, Bagede Imo with Alawi Adebayo. Please like and follow the page. On Instagram, Bagede Imo _22. For advert placement of your goods and services, coverage of events and functions, please dial the phone number streaming on the screen for advert placements only. Once again, good evening. I am Morire Rabila Lawal.
If you want to know what's going on in city, or you want to listen to the latest news and gist, no stress, oh, just tune to BGI TV. BGI TV. You're one in a million.